Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Broadcasting around the world.
Well, hello.
This is your number one internet radio station.
Thursday night, TC Talks. How you doing, Rich?
We're good, mate. We're back. How are you?
2 weeks off, or a week off last week. No Niall tonight. Niall's out shopping in Meadowhall, believe it or not.
Meadow hell.
Well, I don't understand kids these days. If I was 20, you'd never catch me down in Meadowhall on a Thursday night.
Well, I'm 47. You won't catch me in Meadowhall on a Thursday night. I'm telling you that
Thursday
now.
night or Thursday, I'd probably be an exchange bar in Wakey. I'm exchange upstairs. An exchange. You going upstairs?
Yeah.
Right, guys. Tonight we're going back to my alcoholic roots. I thought it was about time I discussed a little bit more about addiction, my addiction, alcoholism, and spend the time going through. Can you ever get rid of an addiction, the stigma, your past, the things you've done, the people you've upset? So hopefully Rich is going to be leading this as well tonight. So we're going to rely on Rich to ask a few questions. Otherwise, I'm going to be interviewing myself, which is going to be a pretty awkward moment for me, you know. But we'll see how we go. The reason I'm doing this is that I've been struggling a little bit in my recovery. Not that I've ever wanted a drink, but struggling. I feel like I've stagnated. I made lots of progress in my early years of recovery, and I feel like I've stagnated. So I thought it was about time just to try and unpick a little bit of that. Now, I'm going to start with a song tonight, away from the Irish theme tonight, because I think it's a bit more important than that. The reason I've chosen this song, guys, if you ever want to hear a song about addiction and about person's struggles with addiction and begging people to help them, this song just completely sums it up. It'll probably break me while I'm listening to it. This is Placebo and Bosco.
Love you more than any man, but something's getting in the way. I do you harm because I can, for the second time today. Victims we're not of happenstance, but you're a victim all the same. Stuck inside a circumstance, with your confusion and your blame. And when I get drunk, you take me home and keep me safe from harm. When drunk, you take me home. I ask you for another second chance, but then I drink it all away. And I get bellicose when you react, full of frustration and dismay. I was so delicate when we began, so tender when I spoke your name. But now I'm nothing but a partisan to my compulsion and my shame. And when I get drunk, you take me home and keep me safe from harm. When I get drunk, you take me. appreciate, but in fact it's baleful. How I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry. I love you more than any man, but I seem to lay it all to waste. I do you harm because I can, with a joke and questionable taste. I've such duplicity at my command, so I keep on lying to your face. Then I run away to Wonderland, disappear without a trace. When I get drunk, you take me home and keep me safe from harm. When I get drunk, you take me home. You know I'm grateful, I appreciate, but in fact it's baleful. How I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry, how I suck you dry.
So we're back with TC Talks. I'm just going to intervene a little bit, and I hope you don't mind. For those who are watching on Facebook, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, if you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's heart-wrenching, and I hope you don't mind me, Tom. And for those who probably could see that Tom was physically upset there, do you mind me asking you, Tom, why?
Yeah. Go on.
Why it hit you so hard right then? Because it come from nowhere, really. That.
Yeah, I mean, it's that song. You can probably still hear my voice. I'm still a little bit broken by it.
Take your time, buddy.
The lyrics of "How I Suck You Dry" is every addict will know that there's somebody in your life who, without fail, you have sucked every ounce of energy out of them. And every time I hear that song, I think of Zoe. Zoe's at home and has been at my side every step of the way since 2001, through the dark times when I did suck her dry completely, killed it financially, was physically abusive, was mentally abusive, was just a horrible, horrible person. But for some reason, despite everything, all the alarm bells, despite everyone else around her saying, get out of that relationship, something told her to stay. And when I hear it, asking for another second chance, how many times did I go to this woman and ask her to help me, and to give me some love, and she, without fail, she was always there. So that song completely breaks me, and I think anyone who listens to that song who's got an addict in the house, whether it's drug addict or an alcoholic, will know exactly what I'm talking about there. The whole, because it's not just the addict or the alcoholic who, I'm going to use alcoholic tonight rather than addict, who suffers. It's the whole family. It's everybody. Everyone's sucked dry. Kids, partners, mums and dads. Because we sometimes forget about, when you're an adult alcoholic, you forget that they have a mum. I had a mum. I didn't have a dad because my dad was dead by that stage, but I had a mother who fought tooth and nail for my, anyone who said anything bad against me, she was always there fighting my corner. But knew deep down that I was destroying myself, but still tried her best to help. So, if somebody's out there today, just share that song so much with so many people. Share it far and wide, because there's somebody out there who needs to hear that song and needs to appreciate the people that have got in their life that are helping them through.
Because I remember you sharing a video with that. It's on YouTube, isn't it? There's a video that's along with it with the placebo
the
song.
director's cut.
Yeah. It's very powerful.
It is
very, very powerful, and it's. I mean this in the nicest possible way. I'm very flattered that you could actually. I mean, you can't help hiding your emotions, but you're a proud man.
Yeah,
and I feel a little bit honoured, if you like, to be in. For you to feel comfortable to be.
I think when you're sharing emotions around anyone who's out there listening that knows about addiction, and when you start to show emotion without alcohol inside you, you're starting to show some progress.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, addicts out there only show emotion when they're drunk. So I only ever cried when I was drunk. It's the only time I cried. It goes way, way back in my childhood. The only time I ever cried was when I was drunk. I'd probably take it as far back as I used to cry at Watership Down. The Bright Eyes back in the day. And my sisters used to tease me for it. And it was one of those things that they teased me that much that I stopped crying. I would never cry. And there was another incident, I'm not going to bring that up tonight, but there was another incident where somebody told me to stop crying. And I literally did, and I didn't cry for 20 years through drink. Just only time I cried was when I was drunk. And I could show loads of emotion, but it wasn't true emotion because you were just letting this stuff out and nobody was paying you any attention because you were drunk. But since I've sobered up, I'm fairly in touch with my emotion. So he'll tell you I can cry at the slightest little thing. But songs like that where it gets you right in your heart, I think that's what music's all about. And you talk about your passion for music.
Yeah.
And I can listen to any music. I can listen to anything from, Leo Sayer was on the radio the other day on Radio 2, all the way through to, any rap music that Oliver's listening to at the minute. But if there's lyrics powerful enough, it gets you where it's supposed to. I can share emotion. And one of the songs that Niall shared with me the other night, I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but he referenced a poem called "Not Waving but Drowning." I don't know if you saw it.
No, I didn't. No.
And again, this is in a rap song. A rap song. How old do I sound? I'm just going to read it for you while I'm here. I wasn't going to intend to read this. By Stevie Smith. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, no, no. It was always too cold. It was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning. Now that last line, I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning, sums up most addicts and most alcoholics. They're not waving at you, they're drowning. You know, the attention they're looking for. And when we're acting up, as people say, you're just looking for attention. Yeah, we are. Because there's something inside us. We're drowning. We're drowning in a sea of emotion. We're drowning in a sea of depression. We're drowning in a sea of something. And the only way we can get some attention sometimes is by either getting drunk, or in my case, I got some attention when I started getting sober. And that was great. And this is probably why I'm struggling with this. And why I want to speak about this tonight is I've started to struggle with progression of recovery. I'm 11 and a half years into it now. Some people look at me and go, well, surely you're still not counting. Surely you're still not looking at it on a day-to-day basis and thinking to yourself, I think to myself sometimes, well, why am I still focusing on my recovery? Now it's 11 years, 8 months, and 5 days since I got sober. I've still got the count. I've got a counter on my phone to remind me how far I've gone. And people go, well, surely that's it. Well, when you start going through things, the classic saying is, a ship's safe in the harbour, but that's not what ships are built for. Anyone can sail in the calm. It's when the seas get rough. Well, the seas have got rough over the last few months for me and my family. Orla being ill, and I've not talked about Orla's illness on air, but Orla's illness has absolutely devastated the family, to the point where my mental health has suffered, Zoe's mental health has suffered, we all have suffered, but the difference with having a recovering addict or a recovering alcoholic in that situation is that they've got something else to worry about. It's not just your mental health, it's the other decisions that you make around that time. So there's been times over the last few weeks where I look at my life and think, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point in being sober? Why am I doing this? Why am I denying myself a solution to my problem? And that's a genuine question. Why am I denying myself a solution to my problem? And yes, you can go deeper into it and go, well, quite clearly it's not a solution. Well, it's a solution for lots of other people. When people who aren't alcoholics have issues, they go and drink a bottle of red wine or go for a night out and enjoy themselves, partying or doing whatever else. Well, what do we do? Well, you know what I mean? Has anyone ever actually sat down and thought about that? What do we do? There's only so many times you can go to the gym. There's only so many times you can take up crochet. You know what I mean? Crochet a blanket and I don't know, paint. But there's something inside. I mean, I still class myself as a young man. Well, I'm only 44 years of age. But there's something inside you that still wants to go out and party sometimes. Still wants to go out and enjoy himself. Still wants to get out there and be around people and socialise. And I think that's the bit that's really hit home over the last few months, is that the social isolation. I've had a core of good people, yourself included, Rich, who have been really instrumental in helping me through this last few months. But your core of good people is so small because you're sober. You don't get invited places anymore. You don't get asked out to parties. You don't get invited around for drinks. You don't get invited to the fancy dress party that somebody's having. That circle of friends is gone. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's not because I couldn't do that. I couldn't go in those situations, because I could. I think it makes other people feel uncomfortable. So it really starts to build up a head of steam sometimes, where you go, well, why can't I just use this solution? why can't I have a drink? So I'm asking myself the question live on air: why can't you escape that past? How come it never goes? This thing, back in the day, 2007, people told me, as soon as you stop drinking, Tom, that's it, you'll be all right. Just get it under control, you'll be all right. Well, I'm 11 years, 8 months, 5 days into it, or whatever it is, and it's still not got much easier. Still, I've done lots, but when I look at the 11 years, I did a lot in the first 5, and I've done nothing in the last 6. Okay, I've written a book. Have I told you about my book? What's it called? It's not about the beard. Yeah, I've written a book. But apart from writing a book in the last 6 years and running 10 marathons in 10 days, and I've not achieved that much as in my career. Apart from speaking to Premiership rugby clubs, little bits, but it's not been consistent. It's been famine or feast in the success model. So there is that question, how I've got another 30 or 40 years to go, and I'm going to have this hanging over me. I don't know if anyone's listening who's having the same problem, hanging over you all the time of this thing. Why can't I have the solution to my problems? Why can't I have a drink? You know what I mean? And it's, I wonder what people would say if I just rocked up. I mean, I walked out the other night. I was going out for some cat food and some milk, and so he said, "Where are you off?" So I'm off for a drink. And she just looked at me and she chuckled. And I went, I wonder what would happen if I actually did just go for a drink. I wonder would the world end? Would my world end? What would happen to me? What would people think of me?
I don't know. I presume it's more rhetorical rather than...
What's your local pub?
The Flat Top.
All right, so what nights do you go in the Flat Top?
Very rarely, but we occasionally frequent there up on a Friday night.
All right, so so you're there on a Friday night with a few of your friends, and I rock up and say, "Hey, Rich, how you doing? A pint of Guinness, please." What's your reaction?
What you doing?
Yeah. All right, so, but why?
Because, and this is only my interpretation, Tom. So don't shoot the messenger. My interpretation of that is, you have a dependency. Is it true to say problem with alcohol? Is that, I don't know. I don't know what the correct terminology is. And for you to deal with alcoholism is to stop drinking, because the drinking was a problem, and the outcome of you drinking escalated into other problems, and it all stemmed back to drinking.
So what if I say to you, my sobriety is now a problem?
You need to speak to some.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it?
You need to speak to some better qualified than I am.
So
but
that's what they call in cricket in terms of straight back, Rich. Yeah, so it's but
if people could see the see the shock and horror on my face.
But that's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
We go, we've got a solution to your drink problem, Tom, and that's to stop drinking. And there's people out there, and I was speaking to a woman at the weekend whose daughter, I can speak about this because she won't be listening, she lives way down in London, and she's loosely connected to me. And she was talking about her daughter, and her daughter's really struggling with alcoholism. Thankfully, she's been a couple of days sober, but she's thinking about going back to work, and she can't get work because she works in the city, and the offices she works in, they all have like wine and fridges and everything's surrounding, everything's alcohol related. I think she must work in marketing or something.
Yeah.
And it's all alcohol related. So she's really struggling in her sobriety to even find work. So this thing called sobriety, that people want us to be sober, but it's not that easy, Rich. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy road to walk down. I think that's what I'm trying to get through to people tonight. Is I want people to understand that when people make that decision to get sober, that's the first step for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And that's a long, long way to go. I got sober when I was 33. If I live till I'm 83, that's 50 years on this planet sober.
Yeah.
And that's a long way to walk on a sober path. And I don't think the world's designed for us. That's how we feel sometimes. I honestly don't think the world is designed for sober people at the minute. And I think that's why so many people struggle. I know lots of people who get to 15, 20 years sober and they relapse. You go, how can you do that? How can you get... I used to, in my early days of sobriety, I was like, oh, I'll never be me, that. I'll never do that. And I'm glad I'm having this.
I remember you had a friend who, after 7 or 8 years, fell off recovery, and I remember reading it, and I felt so sad because I can if I go out and I'm driving, I don't have half, I don't have anything. For me, if I'm having a drink, I'm having a drink. You know, I very rarely drink at home. If we have friends up, occasionally I might have a drink, but for me, this sounds pathetic, but it doesn't taste the same to me. If I'm going out and if I go up to I like Guinness, but I don't, I like a good, I'll have a good rinse, don't get me wrong, but it's not my master. And and I genuinely mean this, Tom, I know if I put my mind to it, and if I said, right, I used to smoke, I stopped smoking. On Saturday, I could have had one. I've got a drink in my hand, but I won't. And I know for a fact that if I said, right, I'll never drink again, if I put my mind, I know that I could do it. And I could go into a social situation, but I don't have a dependency. I don't have an issue with alcohol. But I remember watching something with our comedian, Russell Brand. Yeah. And they were talking about how addiction is an illness. And we went with a neurologist and all this kind of stuff, and they were demonstrating there's certain elements and certain people do have something in the. I mean, you know better than I do, but that it's actual people do have this condition in the brain that they are prone to 100%, addiction.
100%, yeah.
And I don't have that.
I'd be interested though if you spent a year sober, how different your life would be. Not just but with your friendships, your business relationships, how you went about your daily business.
I can go out, Tom, and people think I were pissed. Excuse my French. Apologies for that.
Swore,
But do you know what I mean? People would they would not know that I'm stone cold sober.
Yeah.
I genuinely I genuinely don't need a drink to have a good time. Yeah. I enjoy a drink.
But that's the thing though. When people see you out, do they expect you to have a drink? So if they invite you to a party, do they expect you to
If I say I'm driving, my close friends know that I'm not drinking.
Other friends, do they expect you to be having a drink?
I would have thought so, yeah.
And you'll probably find that if you're consistently turning up sober and not partaking, you'll probably find some of the invites would dry up.
I'm not, probably so, yeah.
And some of the social interactions that you would have normally at work would start to dry up. Because here's the thing that I've realised is that people who are having a drink don't like drinking with people who aren't drinking. They don't like it. It's just not.
I must admit, when I have been sober and I've been the designated driver and dropped everybody off and they're all talking absolute drivel, and you're thinking, oh my God.
Well, I used to think, my thing was never trust a man that doesn't drink.
Yeah.
I used to say it all the time, and I'm embarrassed now about it saying, but I used to say never trust a man that doesn't drink. But it's a sad fact that, and I've certainly found this, that people really do struggle to get their head around people being sober. So it's not an easy path we walk. And I think that's the point where I'm at the minute, is I'm struggling with continuing to walk the path. I'm not at any stage saying that tonight I'm going to go out and have a drink. That's not where I'm at. But I question this thing that there's nobody more fights more for recovery than me. But every now and again I like to say, do you know what, guys? It's hard. It's tough, this road. It's not easy.
I know. I remember having a conversation with somebody who had, or still has, an issue with drink, and they were thinking too far ahead. That, you know, I can't do this, I can't go to a barbecue, I can't go to a pub quiz, I can't go, because they associate going to these situations, social situations, with drinking. And you know, it's one day at a time. And when we're talking before we came on air, the fact of, yes, you stopped drinking, you've been 11 years, 8 weeks, 5 days, whatever it is. But every day, it's a struggle. Every day, it's not, it just suddenly, hey, I've stopped, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
But it comes, you know, you have a bad day, you know, people turn to, you know, celebration, you open a bottle of champagne. There's an association with alcohol with every element of your life. And that is a completely different mindset, I would imagine, to be able to think, right, oh, I can't do that now because...
Yeah, I met up with somebody the other day and over lunch, and he was talking about some business. He said, oh, yeah, we'll meet up and we'll go for a few drinks and a bite to eat. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking to myself, at what stage did I bring this up in the conversation? You know, that I'm an alcoholic and I won't be able to go for a few drinks and a bite to eat with him. Or if I do go for a few drinks, the drinks will be soft drinks. Right, we're going to have a break. I'm going to have I will cry at this one if it's the right song that I've lined up.
The Charlatans?
Yeah, the reason I chose this is the lead singer was on Twitter last night talking about a certain young Tommy Robinson who turned up in his neighbourhood, and it soon told him to go away. So I was quite pleased with this. So I give the Charlatans a play, the only one I know.
You listen to TC Talks live on Smile Radio. We'll be right back after this.
The only one I know.
College Grove Nursery in Wakefield has been providing the highest standard of childcare for over 22 years. Situated on Eastmoor Road, we are close to the M1 and M62 motorway network and also convenient for Wakefield city centre, schools and major places of employment. For more details, check out our website at www.collegegrovenursery.co.uk or give us a call on 01924 200 120 to arrange a visit. College Grove, a special nursery which takes a hand, opens a mind and touches a heart.
I love that advert.
Yeah. Got a diva in the mix.
Yeah, it's a good advert. Love it. Right, so I finished up by saying, at what stage in the conversation do you tell somebody that you're an alcoholic? And I love this question because sometimes I do it out of badness to see people squirm, because some people do squirm, literally do squirm. And then there's times when I mention it, I'm thinking, I wish I hadn't have mentioned it. So a telephone job interview the other week, I was telling you about it. Early morning, chat with this guy about a potential job back in the construction industry. Had a conversation. Well, why did you leave the industry? Well, I left the industry because I was struggling with alcohol at the time, and I sobered up and realised I wanted to get out of the industry and pursue other avenues, personal training, inspirational speaking, that side of things. And there was a really long pause. And it was like, I thought it was okay to talk. I thought isn't that what they're telling us now?
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about depression, about anything else but your anxiety, but not okay to talk about your alcoholism. Because, and I'm sure loads of people out there will agree with this, there is still a huge stigma attached to alcoholism, but also even people in recovery from alcoholism. They almost like you get two types of people who go, well done, really, really good to hear that you're sober. They're obviously people who have had somebody who's an addict in their house and know how hard it is. And then you get other people whose first reaction is, I like a drink, but I'm not a drunk. And then they go on to tell you about how much they drink on a weekly basis, trying to convince you that they're not a drunk. But then they also say, well, I don't understand it. Why don't you just stop? And there's still that complete lack of understanding as to what's going on in the mind of an alcoholic. And I think that's the hard thing for people to get their head around, as to what we mentioned, illness. Getting people to accept that recovery. I love the fact that when cancer patients are in remission, and they ring the bell and all this sort of stuff, and when they're cancer free, and I'm not comparing my alcoholism to people with cancer. I'm not saying that, but there's no bell to be rung for us. We just have to sober up. Well, you shouldn't have got yourself in that state in the first place.
But I just want to touch on a point there. Is I find the information and I'm doing the brackets. My little one does this, but does it in all the wrong context. The so-called professional help. There's conflicting messages in regards to, yes, the individual who has addiction to alcohol, who's an alcoholic, they have to hit rock bottom, they have to do all of this, but yet, getting back to the lyrics in the Placebo song, give me a second chance, and you keep giving them the second chance, and when the help or lack of because it's under-resourced, it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm trying to be careful what I say because I don't want to offend anybody either. But to let somebody get to the bottom, to the reach the bottom, your basic instinct is to nurture and to care, and the addict, the alcoholic, knows that. How do you, and this is probably more of a rhetorical question, how do you do that? Because to try and help somebody, your basic instinct is to help them. But they have to help themselves first, don't they?
Well, let's just unpick a little bit of that. So,
do you understand what I'm trying to the question I'm trying to
Let's unpick some of it, because really important. My views on this are probably a little bit away from alcoholism. Alcoholism and drug addiction is the only illness in the world that we know of as the human race where you've got to hit rock bottom before somebody's agreeing to help you. You know what I mean? If your leg's not broken bad enough, you've got to break it in two places before we fix it. Your cancer's not bad enough. It's not serious enough to treat. Yeah?
Yeah.
If you have a mole, a mole that's not even cancerous, but if you have a mole, suspect that you possibly have skin cancer, you get straight into the hospital and they whip it out at the earliest stage. What do we do with addiction? We let it fester, we let it go into the roots, we let it really develop, and we say to people, and we feed into this whole thing of, you've got to let them reach rock bottom. And we feed into this to the point where even the alcoholic believes it. And he goes, well, I'm not at rock bottom yet. Because I tell you what, we can go low. We can go lower than anyone can imagine. And anyone who's seen it will know that there is no rock bottom for some people.
No.
Some people will continue to go down. So I'm more of the plant the seed of recovery. Talk about recovery. Show the love and support. But also be strong in your conversations. So if an alcoholic is wanting help on one side, but is not doing the things that you that marries up with that, then you need to cut off that conversation. So my rules are: if somebody rings me when they're drunk, I don't speak to them. Well, how can you help an alcoholic if you don't speak to them when they're drunk? I said, well, I find a time. When are you sober? Because they have to be sober at some stage. Every alcoholic has a couple of hours to wake up in the morning. Well, ring me then. So cut off the conversation. If they start to throw blame or accusation, I stop them. And I go, no blame or accusation. We're stopping that conversation. That's not what it's about. It's about you going into recovery. So there's a whole load of things, but it's planting that seed of recovery first. But if we continue to feed this, they've got to hit rock bottom, and they've got to help themselves. Again, it's, can you imagine if you sat as a cancer patient or a heart attack victim? So say you went in with a heart attack, and the doctor turned around and says, do you know what? I think you need to try a little bit harder. You've got to want to help yourself. You've got to want to get fixed.
On the same token, addicts and people with addiction are very clever, and they manipulate and they hide it. So, yes, if you've got a mole and you think it's cancerous, you will go sort it out. I understand that analogy, but the confusion for me is, if the individual who has the dependency, they're not acknowledging it and they're not dealing with it, how can you help that? Because
if they're not acknowledging it, that's entirely a different sphere altogether. Because if somebody's not acknowledging they've got a drink problem, because here's the thing about alcoholism, that I did nothing wrong. I went out and drunk something that everyone else drinks. So as far as I was concerned, you guys were getting it wrong. I was getting it right.
Yeah,
I could just drink more, work harder, play harder than anyone else around me. I didn't have a drink problem. So in that respect, there's not an awful lot you can do for somebody like that. But the problem with this whole, you've got to hit rock bottom. When the person starts to know that there's something wrong, i.e. financially, physically, family, or work, when it's affecting those four things primarily, so financially, family, work, and physical, those things, they start to kick in. When it starts to affect them, and you've been fed into the rock bottom theory, then you go, well, I can't go for help because there isn't any help. I'm not at rock bottom yet. So you're actually feeding into this thing of, well, I've got to drink more. It's a bit like my daughter's anorexia. They feed into this, I'm not thin enough to get treatment. And actually the doctors feed into it as well, because when they go, they measure them on their BMI. And anorexia is not a weight issue. It's a mental health issue. But they feed into this, you're not sick enough, so you don't get treatment. And especially with alcoholism, There's so little available to alcoholics out there of what I would call quality treatment, that people turn around and go, well, he's not sick enough, he's not drinking enough, therefore he's not going to get any help. And that leaves the family there, sat there going, oh, maybe I have to help them. And the families, can you imagine if you had to help your kid with a broken leg? You can't do it. You can't fix that person because you haven't got the skills. But so many families are out there trying to deal with an alcoholic in the house because the treatment services are so overwhelmed and so underfunded. And this is the guys who are out there trying to work their best at this, but also this thing of feeding into, they've got to help themselves and they've got to hit rock bottom. I get it, but it's not helpful. It doesn't help. It's not helping anyone. We need to come away from this thing and then throwing the AA card at them. I'll just go to AA. That's your simple fix. Well, hold on here. Yes, AA does help lots of people, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not the it's not the chemo that cures everything. It's not that. It's everything else that has to go with it. But there's not an awful lot available. But we need to change the conversation. We need to come back and say, right, let's stop feeding into this. You've got to hit rock bottom. Let's start planting the seed of recovery sooner. Let's talk about more people in recovery. Let's talk about people who are out there championing the causes, people who have been in the spotlight, proper role models for these people who have got alcoholism, being out and about. I always compare gay pride. I got really emotional at gay pride in Leeds in August when I was walking up the hedgerow in Leeds, and there was thousands upon thousands of people who 30 years ago were abused. Yeah. And I got really emotional. I said, I would one day love to see a rally in Leeds of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people supporting the millions and millions of people who've got alcohol addictions in this country. And I would love to see a city who would take that on and say, do you know what? This is what it's all about. We're out and we're proud. We're recovery. We're sober and we're proud of being sober. Yeah. And that would make my journey so much easier. When I could just go about my business with other sober people and not falling into this, oh, he's got to hit rock bottom before he gets sober. Because they can see that there's other people out there that aren't ashamed to be sober. They're not anonymous. We are not anonymous. I think we'll go for a break there.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, I got my soapbox.
No.
I apologise.
No.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I chose this next Moby. 20 years since his album Play came out.
It's frightening, isn't it?
20 years since Moby's album came out. And I was never a big fan of him because I always thought he was a bit of a... But I've listened to him, re-listened to him, and I do think that this is a quality track as well. So this is Moby, Why Does My Heart?
Why does my heart feel so glad? Why does my soul feel so glad? Why does my heart feel so glad? Why does my soul feel so glad? Why does my heart feel so glad? Why does my soul feel so glad? Why does my heart Why does my soul feel so bad?
So we're back with TC Talks live on Smile Radio. A bit of Moby. It's a good tune, is
Sorry,
that?
isn't it?
Right, just to go back to when we're talking about, you're saying it's okay to question your sobriety.
I think that's, yeah.
So how do you get it back on track?
I think reminding yourself sometimes that that's all you're doing. You're questioning it. You're just questioning it. You can question things all you want. It's when you start acting on stuff. You know, there's people out there who will be thinking, I could do with being in a better relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they might be married for 20 years, but the point is they don't act on it. They just go, you know what, the grass isn't greener on the other side. I'm all right where I am. I love my partner, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to stay where I am. It's okay to explore things. We've said this in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to explore how you're feeling. If you ignore how you're feeling about your recovery, that's more dangerous. I believe it's more dangerous anyway. I think the fact that I'm out speaking about the struggles that I've had with my recovery recently is actually it's a good indicator that you're self-aware.
Mm.
If you're crashing through your life and not aware of how you're actually feeling, that's something to be worried about. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're self-aware, if you're talking about your struggles, and I would suggest to anyone who's going through long-term recovery that you don't minimise what you're going through. It's still a daily struggle. It's still a massive achievement to navigate the modern world sober.
Mm.
I don't care what anyone says. It's a big pat on the back, Tom Fitz, because you're doing all right. You know what I mean? I have to almost say that to myself sometimes. You're doing okay. And anyone else that's out there who's navigating this world in 2019 sober, a big salute to you all. Because I think you're doing an absolutely fantastic job. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to question why you're doing it. It's okay to question why can't I have the solution to my problems. But there are other solutions. You know, for me, there's things like speaking on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
This is a form of therapy to me. Meditation, music, crying, all those sorts of things are good for you.
Mm-hmm.
They're good for my recovery. They might not be good for somebody else's recovery, but find what works for you.
That's one thing that I've noticed in all the times we've been doing these shows is the fact that find what lands with you, and and it's not one cat fits all, unfortunately.
No. And there are people out there that have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but not everyone. You know what I
No.
mean? And I think that's the thing. If you get to a point where you find what lands, and you find what works for you, and it could be a combination of AA, therapy, art, writing, music, all those different things. But find what works for you and run with it, but question it all the time. If you're really struggling, go out and speak to somebody. Pick up the phone, ring me. And you know what I mean? It's I spoke to somebody in London on the weekend. That lady I was telling you about, whose daughter was struggling. I don't know her.
Yeah.
It's a friend of a friend, but I'm happy to give that time. I won't give you an hour every day.
No.
Because I haven't got it. It's not because I don't want to. I just don't have that time. But question what's going on in your life. Talk about it. Accept it. Don't act on it. Never act on it. Your sobriety is too hard fought to start acting on it just for having a bad day. Don't make a bad day lead to a bad life.
And if you want to get in touch with us, you can drop me an email, and if you haven't got Tom's details, or I'm not saying that I'm an expert or anything like that, but I can get in touch. The whole point of what we're trying to achieve is to help and share the love. And as my 11-year-old daughter says, why can't we all just get on?
That's very true, very true. Right, we're wrapping it up for another week. I've really enjoyed it tonight, guys. Thanks for indulging me in my own problems tonight. We're going to finish with a bit of In Excess. I used to be called Michael Hutchins back in the day with my long hair. I just dreamed that.
Yeah, I think you did.
I was listening to Lost Boys the other night, and a bit of In Excess on the Lost Boys. So, new sensation. See you next week.
And don't forget, guys, if you miss this show, any of the show, go to our website, smileradio.co, click on demand and download the podcast. You can go to iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, and all the major podcasting sites. So thanks again, TC. It's been a fantastic show tonight. And
Keep
like
it
I say, if anybody's got any questions or you want to get in touch, drop us an email, richard@smileradio.co. Have a great evening, guys.